Hi, how are you?
Um, Let me try to. I can't see your video, so I'm just
Oh,
trying.
I don't have it on. Okay, sorry. Let's see.
Hmm.
There we go. I'm sorry. I forget. Since I don't need it, I forget to turn it on. Sorry.
I know. I have the
Sorry.
recording on.
Yes, that's great.
How are you feeling today?
Great. How are you?
I am actually quite nervous because I have a quite a soft voice because I have been silenced quite regularly since young. So I
Okay.
typically speak really softly. So because I know that you can't see me today, I felt
Right.
that extra pressure that I need to speak up, and that makes me a little bit nervous.
You sound great. You sound wonderful.
Thank you.
You sound
Usually
great.
I will do my recording, and in the editing room, I need to increase the percentage of my voice level.
Okay.
Yes, so but today I felt like, oh, I need to speak up because yeah, that's what I need to do today.
Yes, because I can't read your lips, right?
I
I
know.
can't read your facial expressions.
Yes. I'm really glad to see you today.
Yes, thank you. It is morning your time, right?
It's morning my time. It's winter now. It's really cold. So I
Oh,
have this thick coat on and I've off the heater so it doesn't have that white noise in the recording room.
perfect, perfect, perfect. How cold is it?
This morning, like very early when I wake up to make lunchbox for my son, it's about 7. Now I think
Oh,
with the sun, it should have won up to 10.
oh, wow, that's cold.
Does it,
That's
does it, how cold is winter in your place?
not cold, like 40 degrees.
Ah.
Not cold at all. So I can't complain about the weather.
Well, you're blessed. You're blessed. First of all, thank you so much for coming and join me this morning and your evening.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for making the accommodation of Zoom.
Oh, not at all. It's the only thing that I can do to help us have a smooth recording session.
Yes,
My channel is about helping people overcome their trauma in the
yes,
way that is less conventional. It's not about giving them strategies to do that, but rather to help them find that initial spark, that initial courage, the very gentle courage that is hidden within themselves to say,
yeah,
I want to try doing that because I'm sick of this state. So that
yes,
was, I find that finding that the initial courage is so important because most of us or most of adults that we know of who are stuck in their present state, comfortable in their normal of discomfort, is
yes,
lacking that initial courage because stepping away from that is actually quite scary in itself.
yes, very, extremely.
So I find that with your situation, your adversity compared to our kind of life drama, you will have a
Yes,
lot more to
yes,
share with us how we can come out of it and find that initial spark of courage.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Maybe you'd like to start by introducing yourself so that for people who are knowing you for the first time can understand and hear your story.
Yeah, so life was going well, was quote normal. Yeah, everything seemed normal. And when I was 9, I was diagnosed with a very rare retinal disease. So the cells in my retina were starting to die, starting to deteriorate. So as I was diagnosed as a 9-year old, I wasn't experiencing a lot of vision loss. The main vision loss didn't come until a teenager, till the end of middle school. And a major moment where I recognized it was one day in geography class. The teacher, as he always did, said, take out your notes and copy down the notes on the board. So I took out my notebook and I grabbed my pen and I looked up at the board, and all I could see were these fuzzy, blurry images. They weren't numbers, they weren't letters, they weren't shapes. They were just these fuzzy designs. So thinking that was very weird, look back at my notebook, look back up at the board, and again, that's all I saw. So I leaned over to the student sitting in the desk next to me and said, "How are you copying down the notes? There's nothing to write down on the board." And she leaned back, and her response is what's completely changed me. Her response was, "Laura, what do you mean? The print looks completely normal." So as she responded that way, I knew it wasn't the print on the board. It was my vision decreasing. So it was around those teenage years that I lost that my sight began to decrease in a major way.
And at that time, what was your first instinct? Did you stay out through the class or did you ask to leave?
So I definitely asked to leave. And my emotional response from that at the beginning, my initial emotional response was denial. This is this is not going to last long. My blindness will, my vision will come back soon. The blindness is not forever. I was in complete denial of the reality. Once that denial wore off, my mindset, my emotion, my thought was, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't. I can't do this. This is too hard. This is too much, because I literally had to adapt and change to everything in every part of life. So for me as a teenager, that was overwhelming. That was too much to process. That was too much to handle. So my response was, I can't, which led to intense anxiety and to intense depression.
I actually cannot imagine how that looks like because I have a teenage son who just started high school, and
Yes.
the new environment, the hormones, the growth has already caused so much anxiety in him.
Yes.
So
Yes.
with your sudden change in situation, it must be so difficult.
Yes. It was difficult beyond words. Yes, because you said it perfectly. You had the normal hormones, the change in school, you have all the normal changes as a teenager, and then to add on top adjusting to life without sight. So it was incredibly difficult, which is why I was so anxious and so depressed.
How did your parents having to dealt with, a teenage girl in a
A
house and
teenage
then
girl.
yes, and then with a new added challenge of the vision
I was
loss,
challenged.
how do they handle it? Must be so stressful for your mom as well.
Yes, that's a great question. So they went through their own grief process. Both my mom and my dad, our daughters experienced this major loss. And obviously, it was something they couldn't protect me from. It was out of everyone's control. So as they were going through that grief process, the gift was they would say to me every single day, "Laura, we don't know what the future is going to be. But what we do know is we're going to take it day by day by day." So where I was saying, I can't do this, the future is too overwhelming, they were constantly telling me, we will take it day by day, moment by moment by moment. And that was such a great gift because it taught me through their example, I didn't have to figure out my entire future. All I had to figure out was getting through the next hour, the next day, the next minute. And that was an incredible gift. Another gift that they gave me was I have one older brother. He's 5 years older than me. Their standards and expectation for both of us did not change, even though I was losing my sight. So they didn't instantly pity me. They didn't baby me. They didn't feel sorry for me. Rather, they just empowered me through saying, we will take it day by day by day. So those two actions were an incredible source of strength and what gave me the power to eventually move forward, because they were saying through their actions, you still matter, you're still enough, you just can't see as well. So that was in their response was an incredible gift to me.
I really applaud your parents, and I was tearing up a bit listening to your story because it must have felt such pain in them to
Yes,
have to witness this. I went
yes.
through a miscarriage about 2 years ago, and the feeling
Uh,
of helplessness, like nothing is going to reverse the situation on your
right,
child, is
right.
really painful. So
Yes,
they are really so strong, such healers themselves.
yes, yes. To both feel their grief while also supporting me to move forward. Absolutely.
So was it because I imagine at a teenage mind as how I'm seeing teenagers now in my house,
Right,
it didn't happen overnight that they
right.
set the example and then straight away you accept it. There must be a transition period. So what was the initial moment that you felt that I can do this?
So the initial moments that I felt I can do this, it was not one exact, like you said, it wasn't a one exact moment of, okay, all of a sudden I just woke up and I said, okay, I can. It was a, just like you said, it was a slow transition of, as teachers, as my brother, my parents, people around me were saying through their actions, I can. I slowly began to realize, oh, I don't think I can, but the people around me think I can. So that started to plant that seed, that idea in my mind. Maybe this is possible. And I very much realized there was a point where I had to accept that I could for myself. While their support was great and their support was incredibly healing, there became a place and a time where I had to accept and choose to move forward. So that was a powerful moment when I chose to have that courage and move forward.
It was quite a when I found that courage, it was both a relief and an excitement. Was that how you feel?
That was exactly how I feel. You said it perfectly, because then I what I could control was my mindset. And that was what you said. That was exciting. That was a sense of relief. I
And what
do have to, I can't control this uncontrollable situation.
and what was the first thing that you decide to do?
To believe in myself, to have the courage to continue moving forward.
What was your dream before you lost your sight? What was your ambition that people like to ask? What do you want to do when you grow up?
Yeah, before I lost my sight, my ambition, my dream, my just my passion, I knew it was either a teacher, a counselor, something in the helping profession. I didn't have a direct drive to it's absolutely this, but I definitely knew it was something in the teacher, counselor, helping field.
And after you lost your vision, what was your ambition? Was it the same?
So it was the same, but it was very focused. So I was very focused on learning how we heal mentally, spiritually, emotionally, that we don't just heal psychologically, but we heal as a whole person, and not always with conventional resources, but tapping into our own spirit, the own resources within ourselves. So that became my deep passion, my deep focus.
You cannot see me now, but just now I was tearing and now I was smiling brightly because I'm really happy that it didn't shift so much your ambition in a way. Because yeah,
Yes,
because now you can do even more deeply from what I
yes,
see your records and your accolades.
yes,
I I know that you are a very well-known speaker for gratitude and grit.
yes,
I want to talk about Grit Fest because I find the the scope of it, the grit that you're talking about is so, the boundary of it is so wide because usually I know grit as simply courage and resolve, like a strength of the character.
Yes.
That's the dictionary definition. But
Right, right,
you define it
right.
so widely. And when I heard you say we are down, would we have the grit to allow others to help us? I sort of, from my experience, I sort of understand what it meant because as a proud person, it's so hard to say I need help sometimes.
Yes,
But to
yes.
but to put a statement to say, would you have a grit to allow others to help us? What do you mean?
So what I mean by that, will we have the self-compassion, the self-love, the self-trust to know that we're worthy? So asking for help does not make us less worthy. Asking for help does not mean we're less than. Asking for help does not mean a weakness. So, what I had to learn is having the grit to ask for help is a source of strength, a source of courage, because we have to have that deep self compassion, again, that deep self trust to know ourselves well enough to know our needs and then to have the courage to ask clearly and communicate those needs for ourselves. So rather than just being stubborn, like you said, thinking, oh, I can just do it all on my own, that independent, having the grace within ourselves to say, I need help. And that's actually a strength. That's not a weakness.
On the other extreme of this proud ego that
Right.
we have,
Right. Right.
sometimes, on the other spectrum, you also see people who take advantage of their situation
Right.
and excessively ask for help. And
Right.
sometimes I caught myself having this self-critique that I tell myself, why can't you do it yourself? Or I catch myself saying, are you sure you're not being lazy? In those very, very harsh moments that I give myself.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, how do you differentiate between you're so clear that you want help versus, you know, I don't know how to phrase it better.
Yes. No, you said it perfectly. And that is what you said is my dialogue. Oh, don't ask for help. You're just being lazy. All those critical thoughts that we give ourselves. What I've had to learn, and this is where the grit came from, was asking for help is in between those two statements. Oh, just as you were saying, the extreme of, oh, don't be lazy, you can do it yourself, and the extreme of, I'm too proud to ask. In the middle of those two statements, for me, I found is a place that comes from a genuine, I need help with this, that healthy interdependence on another person, another human being. So for me, it was asking myself, am I really lazy? Absolutely not. Is it a prideful moment if I ask for help? Absolutely not. Therefore, what I'm asking for is reasonable. And if someone were to ask me for it, I would think that's very reasonable and I wouldn't hesitate to ask. So it's just finding the balance in between those two statements, in between those two extremes.
Okay, I need to learn. I think I'm still trying to figure out.
It's very hard. It's a daily choice. It is an absolutely daily choice. It's not a one time decision at all. It's a daily process.
A daily process. Do you sometimes feel like just do it all?
Do I feel like I have to do it all?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, that's where the pridefulness comes in, like, oh, God, I can just do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I have to check myself and say, absolutely not. I'm human that gets exhausted, that gets worn out mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And it's actually healthy. Again, that interdependence on other humans is actually healthy and vital for our well being. So, again, it's learning that healthy balance. It's actually okay to depend on others.
I have a very curious question. Why did you take up psychology and still decide to pursue that after you lost your sight?
That's a great question. That was my deep passion to figure out and to study how our mind heals from trauma,
Mm.
and not just from the perspective of go to therapy and our mind heals, but to really study and explore how does our mind heal? How do we use mindfulness and energy work and breath work? And how do we use all the different resources available to our mind in the process of healing?
And from your experience, how do you define trauma? Because I felt that, or my counselor may say the word trauma, but I feel like, how can I, so blessed, be facing a trauma? Is this really a trauma? How can I say that this is a trauma? It's like it's not an accident. Nobody had any injuries. Why is this a trauma? And I find it difficult to come to terms when she told me that I have a complex childhood trauma. I'm like, how
Yeah,
did it even happen? I was fed. I have a roof over my head.
right. That's a great question. I, for me specifically, I've experienced trauma as I had to go through major change and adapt from one way of living to another way of living. So
Mm.
for me, the traumatic experience was having to adjust to a new way of living. The way that manifested was through fear, through anxiety, through depression, through the grief process. Those emotions are traumatic for a teenager, for adult, for a child. Those extreme emotions, anger, sadness, bitterness, grief, loss, loneliness, that's traumatic to our human experience.
So anything that is very massive in its magnitude of emotions caused to you
Right.
by an event, that is a
Uh,
trauma.
Absolutely. 100%. You said it perfectly, much better than I did. Good work.
No, you did. You gave me a very clear explanation. I wanted to know, I just lost my thought there. Let me give me a minute.
Absolutely.
I wanted to know, oh, it's not coming back. I'm actually really stressed in this interview.
It'll come back to you. You'll
I
think of it.
know. I I am still feeling that pit in the stomach, largely because
Yes.
when I saw your profile and I wanted to do this interview so badly, but at the same time I had this fear in me to do this interview because the level of helplessness that I felt over the loss of my
Yeah.
child and the level of helplessness that you might felt, I felt that it triggered me so
Yes.
badly because
That's what I
it
was getting
was,
ready to say. It triggering you the loss, right?
yes.
Yes, absolutely. That ongoing grief process.
And I had to do not just one, but like two grounding meditation this morning before coming in.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because it triggers so much in you. Yeah, that's normal. Yeah. And that's where the self compassion comes in for you to admit that and voice that. That is incredibly healing. So I
Yeah,
think thank you for sharing. And that is a gift to all of our listeners to learn. There's just certain situations in life when we interact with other people that trigger us. And that's okay. That's not a weakness. That's not a problem. That's healthy. And that's how we move towards healing and depending on one another for our growth, just as you and I are leaning on each other and trusting each other for ideas, for insight, for wisdom. So thank you for sharing. That's a source of strength, a source of growth.
for you, this interview, I set up my space like I'm in a healing session with tissue paper.
Perfect. Perfect. Perfect.
Oh,
That's
it's
great.
quite tough. And I wanted to ask, like, how did you grieve time and again, with this loss of vision? How did you grieve time and again? Like, Every time the
Great
loss
question.
is not less, it's actually more. How do you do that?
Yes, great question. So, what I've learned, again, this is the ongoing process. I had a very powerful interaction with a mentor. So, when I was in college, right before I started my first year at college at university, I had a meeting with a mentor. And at the end of that meeting, she said, Laura, I just want to let you know, you think you're done grieving. You think that you grieved the 4 years of high school and you're finished with that process and now you can move forward. I just want to let you know you are going to continue to grieve for the rest of your life. And grieving is not a weakness. Grieving does not mean you have not moved forward. Grieving does not mean you haven't accepted your new normal. It just is what it is. So know that you can do both at the same time. You can grieve and you can move forward. And the gift of that conversation was permission. She gave me permission where I thought I had to grieve, like you were saying, in one finite situation and then finish grieving and then move forward. I couldn't really go back to grieving again. She was giving me permission to constantly grieve while constantly moving forward. And when we talked about the excitement and the release that you mentioned a minute ago of the accepting just ourselves and our life situation, that was incredibly exciting and relief to hear it's okay to grieve. And this
Yeah,
is just a part of my new normal.
that's really powerful. I started the miscarriage being really quiet about it because worried that I was worried that I overreact because the doctor
Yes.
said that miscarriage is normal, and my miscarriage loss is so small because it's a very early stage of the pregnancy. So then I was worried about whether I was overreacting, but I could not stop feeling that way. And then
Yes.
later on, when once I gave myself permission to grieve, while it was relieving, at the same time, it was also scary because that was when I first saw the magnitude of how sad I really am.
Yes.
So how do we actually I wanted to ask this because until this year, my birthday month is also the month of his departure anniversary.
Oh,
So
wow.
it has been 2 years going. And what happened was, I don't know, but my body knows, right? So
Yeah.
around the time before I even realized it was the anniversary month, I would
Okay.
start feeling low, mildly depressed, and
Yes.
then I will try my best to overcome this feeling because I actually don't know what was going on. I wasn't aware. And
Where?
then when I felt my pit bottom, I would
Yeah.
find my healer and I said, okay, I can't handle this myself anymore. I need help. I need professional help. And I'll
Yes.
book in a session. And both times, both year, I will cry so much that I don't recognize my own self. And at the
Yes.
same time, right after, I will fall sick so badly. The first year, I had sore throat for 3 weeks straight.
Yeah.
And so, how do we grieve in such a way that we can still handle ourselves in such a way that it can be more graceful on us? How can we be more mindful of our situation so that we can grieve in such a way that is not so destructive?
Perspective. Yeah. So for me and my experience, that's where the gratitude comes in. And what I don't mean about gratitude is be happy, be positive, say thank you all the time. That's not the gratitude. The gratitude again that helped me through this grief process and answers the question of what you're saying is the gratitude of what are we thankful for that in this day where again for your example when you're sobbing all day, what's the gratitude? The gratitude is you survived the day. The gratitude is you were able to release those tears. So again, you're not thankful for the miscarriage. You're not thankful for the tears. You're not thankful for the difficult, traumatic experience. Rather, you are deeply grateful that you survived the day.
Mm.
So for me, in my example, in my life, again, I was not grateful for the blindness. I didn't wake up and say, oh, this blindness is great. I'm so glad I have it. But I learned to wake up and say, I am so thankful that as a high schooler, I woke up and had parents that told me all I have to do is today.
Mm.
I am so grateful for teachers that made accommodations for me. So I share all that to say we're able to get through the grief and not allow the grief to be destructive as we focus on gratitude. And it's the gratitude, again, of perspective, permission to grieve, because yes, that's a normal human experience, while also moving forward so the grief doesn't become destructive.
It's highly, highly offensive when I want to say things like things happen for a reason. It's the
Right.
universe way of bringing us to our soul purpose. But I find it myself highly, highly offensive to say that, because if I say that I'm thankful for the miscarriage because then I found my soul purpose, it's like thanking what has happened.
Right.
So, how can we phrase it in such a way that we know that this is a growth path and we are grateful, at the same time, not giving credit to the event itself, you know?
Wow. Yes, I absolutely know. It's a brilliant question. I think about every single day. And my perspective on that is I am grateful that through this opportunity, it has not shut me down and stopped me from living my passion. And my understanding is no, it's like you said, it wasn't your sole purpose to have a miscarriage. My understanding is that your sole purpose supported you through that traumatic, horrible experience. So, again, in my perspective, in my life situation, no, it's not my understanding that my highest good was to become blind. Yet through that trauma that happened, I was supported through the universe to navigate through it. So I wasn't emotionally, spiritually, physically shut down.
Mm.
Does
Yeah.
that difference? Am I not saying that
Yeah.
clearly?
Yes, you did. That sounds so much better because, I am still learning about the gratitude. I still want to thank, the universe for bringing me all the goodness in my life. I still
Yes.
want that. But when I remember when one of the spiritual healer told me that right now you cannot see the gifts that comes along with the miscarriage, in my
Yes.
mind, I was thinking that was cruelty. That's no gift.
Yes.
But at the
Yes.
same time, go
Thank
ahead.
you for saying that, because as people would say the same thing to me. Oh, just be thankful for the blindness. And that hurt me.
Yes.
That was like you said, that was, oh my gosh, that's cruel. So again, it's not being thankful and not having the perspective of that was calls to support us, rather thinking of, yes, okay, it happened. And I'm thankful that mentally, physically, spiritually, I have the grit to move forward one more hour, one more day, one more minute. So I completely agree. And thank you for saying that, because that was my experience as well. How could you say that to me?
Yeah. How did you then have the closure? Because now we start out the part where it's really offensive to say that, so please don't say that to us. But how do we then find closure in that incident that, we did have, like, a victim of family abuse or someone has lost their vision or their legs and you lost a child? How do you bring closure to that season and say that I don't even know what to say? How do we close that?
For me, in my experience, it's not closure, it's an ongoing process,
Okay.
because we have to live it every single day. So you have to grieve and live with your miscarriage from now on. I had to live with the blindness from now on, So from my perspective, it's not closure, it's an ongoing process. And that's where the power of the grit comes in, that it's a day-to-day choice. I'll choose today to have the courage to move forward. You will choose today for the miscarriage and the grief of that, not to be destructive in your life, but you will continue to move forward. So rather than for me closure, it's a perspective of it's an ongoing process that every day I choose to move forward.
So it's more like a process of acceptance and then showing compassion that,
A 100%
you can
perfect.
still,
Showing compassion to yourself. Yes.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I did find that the moment when I felt that peace was when I stopped struggling to wish for a miracle. And
Yes. Yes.
yes,
Yes. Me too. Me too.
yeah, and just accept, because for mine it was a shorter period, right? Because I went to the doctors and they just told me that, oh, over the weekends, the fetus would drop out, or you can come to the hospital to wash it out.
Right.
And when it is still in me, every constant minute, I was praying for a heartbeat revival. I
Yes.
was hoping for going online to see videos of people having
Yes.
those messages, and then you go back again and the heartbeat is there, but it wasn't. And it
Yes.
was coming to terms with it and saying that, telling my husband, I said, I felt that the baby is really gone. And that
Yes.
was acceptance.
That was acceptance. Absolutely. Yes. That was my experience as well.
What was the first thing that you wanted to do after you accepted?
Breathe deeply.
Oh, yes, I should breathe.
Because there was so much anxiety and depression that I was breathing short, shallow breaths. And just to breathe a deep breath from my diaphragm gave my body the strength to relax finally. So I know that sounds simple, yet it was so profound to breathe deeply and just let my body be relaxed and not have my body be so tense, so nervous, that pit in your stomach, but just let your body be at ease.
That's exactly how I felt throughout the whole interview. I just did a stretch and I breathed deeply when you said so. I was clenching onto my stomach. I felt a pit in my
Yes.
stomach the whole time because as much as we can heal when it gets triggered, you still feel it in your
You
body.
still you feel those exact same emotions. Yes, absolutely. I can relate. Yes,
I
we
was
feel those
shaking.
emotions.
I was
Yes.
shaking throughout the interview. You just can't see it, but I was really shaking. I was like, oh man, I really wanted my audience to hear this because I'm sure that's what people go through this every time when they go through a big episode in their
Yes.
life. But at the same time,
Yes.
it is challenging, it's uncomfortable. You felt that you have gotten over it, and the next moment you are triggered all over, you're trembling, you felt a pit
Yes.
in your stomach, and my shoulders were like held up tight the
Tense.
whole time. I was
Yes.
punching on
Yes.
to my fur coat, and the moment you said, just breathe,
Yes.
it was a release.
Yes. Just brace your diaphragm, right?
Yes. And what was the number one thing that gives you so much? Because I saw all your videos and they were so positive, they were filled with that kind of courage that
Yeah.
is so strong. Like we don't know where that force came from.
Right.
How did you do that?
So the positivity, the joy, the laughter, that all came from sitting in the pain.
Oh,
So
wow.
as I gave myself permission to grieve and to sit in the pain, that gave me the strength to then acknowledge the pain and choose joy. So I was only able to get to that place of joy and again, laughter by sitting with the pain, sitting in what exactly you described, the uncomfortable, acknowledging, oh my gosh, the pit in my stomach, clenching my fist, my shoulders being so tight.
Yes.
realizing that and not shaming myself for it, but just saying that's part of your human experience. That's part of your grief because you went through a major loss. Acknowledging that and letting myself sit there and then move forward. A very powerful advice that I was given from a therapist when I was talking to her about my anxiety was she said, Laura, I want you to sit down and just for 5 minutes, I want you to just sit with your anxiety. I want you to turn towards that pit in your stomach, the tightness in your chest, the shortness of the breath. I want you to turn towards it. And as she told me that, I thought, that's the worst advice I've ever heard.
Yeah.
That's only going to make the anxiety worse. So just to prove her wrong, I went home and I tried it. And what I found was once I sat there for 5 minutes, after that 5 minute period, it was easier to breathe. It was easier to relax my shoulders. It was easier to laugh. It was easier to smile. So that's what I mean about sitting with our pain, not forever, like in a destructive way, but just to sit to acknowledge it gives us the strength to laugh, to feel joy, to smile again.
I wasn't it wasn't like I wasn't allowed, but my situation has taught me over growing up years to
Mm-hmm.
bottle up my feelings and
Yes.
sweep things under the carpet to protect
Yes.
myself growing up.
Right. Right.
And as I grow up, I started learning about my own vulnerability, my own sadness.
Yes.
And I have to say that even after so many sessions, sometimes I have to go to professional help. I have to pay to cry.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
don't know
I
how to do it
completely agree.
myself.
Yes, I agree. Because again, it's that we need that support of another human to tell us that's okay, to
Yeah.
support us while we cry.
So is that why I can't cry on my own? Like everybody said no. My healer always tell me like once a while she would sit with herself and sit with her pain and any discomfort. If she needs to cry, to scream, she would just do that. I tried it so many times. I got bored. It never worked.
For me, I completely agree. That was my experience as well. And what I found is that just changes slowly over time.
Okay. How
So
did you
one
do
day,
that?
randomly, you'll just might realize you might tear up. And then the next day, it might be a little more, not just tears, but actual like crying. Again, it's not something we can force. Just like you were saying, your body knew about your miscarriage. Our body just knows when it's safe to release. So, what I found in my experience in my life, trusting myself, trusting the timing, not forcing it.
How did you How did you face it when people talk about your blindness? Like when people talk to me about miscarriage, I usually laugh it off or, just change the topic. I don't really
Yes.
know how to talk to you about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, that's all around the work of the vulnerability, right?
Yes.
So, and I love Dr. Brene Brown's work on this, on vulnerability. And what she talks about, the power in that, what I've learned as a person who has self compassion, whose daily process working on that self trust and that self love, it's easier for me to share with someone about the blindness that I deeply trust, that I deeply know is going to respect and hold that space when I share the pain. So, like you said, in some situations, it is easier to laugh it off or change the subject because that's a form of safety, just emotional safety. Yet,
Mm.
when we know we're around those people, just like in our conversation today, I know it's safe to share and discuss my life situation, the pain, the joy, the laughter, the sorrow. So I don't have to brush it off or I don't have to dismiss it.
Mm.
So to me, it's situation by situation, person by person, just learning to develop that intuition. Is it emotionally safe to trust this person with that pain, with that situation.
Wow. Thank you so much because I always thought I'm weird.
No, you're totally normal because that's actually healthy. Because again, if we shared everything with everybody, that'd be exhausting, right?
No, my
And
one of
not everyone wants to hear all that, right? So
one
you
of
are completely normal, and that's very healthy.
one of the therapists whom I just met, I mean, even if he's a counselor, a therapist, I think we need time to build that rapport to be
Yes,
ourselves.
yes.
So I just met and she talked about it. And then she said, "Oh, you have not gotten over it. That's why you can't talk about it." And the more she said that, the
Oh,
more I can't talk about it.
right, 100%. Because my experiences is we need to talk about it to navigate through it.
Yes, yes. And
Because
that's
talking about it is healing.
what you just said just gave so much power because a lot of times when as based on experience, maybe now thinking back, maybe that therapist is also feeling a little bit protective over her turf, then I'm not opening up.
Right.
But her making that statement actually left me going home feeling that there's something wrong with me.
No, no, you are completely normal. And again, talking about our life situation is healing, is a form of healing.
That's really, really powerful. And in your work, because I know you're also a chaplain at the hospital, are you still doing that?
I'm not. So I'm not doing that anymore, but I loved that work and that was incredibly healing. And that was a lot of what I did. Most of my work in chaplaincy was listening, just being that listening presence is in the chaplain world we call it just holding the space, so giving a space, a patient the space to talk about the difficulty of being in the hospital, so just holding that listening space, being that trusted person they could talk to because they didn't really need solutions. All they needed was someone to vent, someone to listen, someone to hold their pain.
How did you soften the person's deposition if they were very resistant to your support?
By not forcing it. If they were resistant, I would say, okay, I respect that. And I'll come back tomorrow if you want me to. So by not pushing, allow them to open.
That's really beautiful because I also find that when I talk about our courage to heal, our courage don't show up every day. And by not forcing it, like you said, just letting go and letting yourself put on another side of you to carry on a day, just
Yes.
letting your gut down about holding on to that courage actually gives you more courage.
Right. Right. 100%. 100. You said it perfectly. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know, even in our situation, what happened was I came to Australia in 2009. And
Okay.
one of the first experience that I had was I was walking along the street and someone just scolded bloody Asian.
Ooh.
And it was like very early on when I arrived in
Wow.
the country. So from that day onward, I felt like I had to brave myself a lot more when I show
Right.
up.
When you show up.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I
Wow.
felt
I
that
am so sorry.
yeah, I know.
That is awful.
And before we came here, one of the family member who heard, I don't know why he did that, but he heard a lot of discriminatory stories trying to dissuade us from moving here. And he
Mm.
shared it with me. So that fear level was already there.
Are you
And
there? Okay.
I'm sure in your everyday life in the university or high school, when your parents choose that you should continue the normal education, the normal
Yes.
route without, giving you more support because they believe in you,
Right.
you would have faced a lot of prejudice in terms of
Yes.
treatment by less aware people, less compassionate
Definitely.
people. And how do
Definitely.
you then Because even for myself now, when I talk to people, unless I already know the person, the first instinct is to back off. That's my first instinct.
Right.
How do you overcome that and show up more and more and more confidently?
Yeah. So again, definitely a process because in those beginning years in high school, when I was adapting to life without sight, those comments would destroy me
Mm.
and really make me incredibly depressed and doubt myself and were extremely hurtful. Now that I'm more in a place of healing, more in a place of balanced mentally and spiritually and physically, those comments, obviously, they still hurt. We're human, right? They're always
Yes.
going to hurt.
Yes.
The gift, what I'm able to do now is feel the hurt and move forward. So rather in the when those high school days when they would just shut me down, now I let myself feel the hurt, acknowledge the hurt, and then also choose, but I believe in me and I have enough people that believe in me that I will keep going.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's hurtful and it's a process. Again, just like the self-compassion is a constant process. Some days those comments hurt more than others. When I'm already having a difficult day, those comments hurt a lot worse. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up because it's something that we experience all the time.
Even now, when you are, from my perspective, you're already established in your speaking, coaching, and counseling, would you still face that?
Definitely more from complete strangers, not necessarily people within my circle, within my support system, but definitely just strangers, just people in the public that I interact with.
I see. I realized that I forgot to say I'm sorry when you tell me about your situation because usually I will look at you and smile at you and give you a nod, lovingly, but
Yes.
because I don't really use my words as much as my body language, so I'm sorry about
Yes.
that.
Oh, no problem. Don't need to apologize.
When I'm at work, some of the bosses whom I don't feel safe with, I'm extremely quiet and they sometimes make a comment about me that she really don't talk. So when I came into this interview, my first instincts, I really have to talk today.
I have to speak up, right?
Yeah. When I have a toothache, I took out one of the my tooth when I was trying to fall pregnant some years back. It's always about pregnancy, right? I have decades of my life about pregnancy, so
Yeah, yeah.
and then I have a toothache when I was so stressful one time, and I have to very, very traumatically take it off because it was so bad that the doctor couldn't do anything.
Oh gosh.
And they had no GA available because it was very last minute. I had to just take it
Okay.
out and with the
Oh,
local, and we did that. And after that, I think the trauma plus everything just shut me down, and my face was swollen and all that.
oh
And
gosh.
my son at that time, I think he must be 7 or 8. And the
Okay.
first thing I told a stranger, I said, "Oh, sorry, I can't talk today because it was really painful." And the first thing my son said was, "Oh, she's very happy about that. Now she have a legit reason not to speak up at all."
That's great. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
So sometimes, we go through so many things in our lives, and it was as painful as it is. We joke about it after we
Yes,
get over a certain chapter, a certain episode, and we felt lighter about it because
yes,
we have worked on it.
yes, 100%. And that's healing just to think back and laugh at what your son said, just to find joy in that now. Like you said, that you move through the actual experience. So you're right. Laughter is very healing.
I I always wonder, I asked this question to a lot of people and a lot of healers that I've met. And in the end, I came to the conclusion that this healing journey of our life is always continuous. You don't
Yes.
stop, there is no end because there is always something that we can work on.
Right.
What is your perspective on that?
I 100% agree. I completely agree because it's a daily process. Every day, every week, every month, Every year we're faced with new challenges, new sorrows, new joys. So much of life, the good and the bad, happens to us. It's a continual process of growth. Sometimes we need more self-compassion. Sometimes we need more self-love. Sometimes we need to depend on others. Sometimes we need to just give ourselves grace, give ourselves that compassion. So depending on the time, the day, the situation, we need to give ourselves different parts of healing. So yes, I completely agree with that. And that's definitely been my experience.
I know we had been here for almost an hour, but I do have a question that I really want to ask. And that's on, when I go through healing, there will be a point when certain modalities of healing has maxed out its effect on me.
Yes.
Because there's only
Yes.
so much I can talk to my counselor about. And then I started turning to energy healers,
Yeah.
relaxation, this and that. What was your experience about going through the different modalities? Was it by choice, curiosity, or
Your experience. Again, you said it. What you said was my experience. I, I got to a point where the talk therapy wasn't doing anything.
yeah.
I just reached a point where it was I needed something else. And it's not that the talk therapy wasn't working, that the talk therapy was bad. I just needed another modality because I need to process all that I had talked about and all the wisdom I had received from my counselor. So for me, the next step in that healing process was mindfulness. So learning mindfulness, the gift of mindfulness was deeply, deeply healing, and also energy work as well. So Reiki
Yes.
was very healing, was very powerful. So yes, mindfulness and healing work, I can't say enough good about.
How does it feel? Because sometimes when I talk to people, they think that Reiki work, energy work is the hippie kind of healing.
Yes,
You
woo
know?
woo. That's what we say in the United States, woo woo.
Yeah, all the woo stuff. How do you And it takes me a while, I must admit, because it wasn't working for me. It's not that the counselor wasn't working, but it wasn't working for me. I had to
Yes,
source for other modalities, but at the same time, it also took me quite a bit. It took my instinct to lead me to Reiki, but then
me too.
having landed myself there, it takes more than that to kind of strangely felt good, but I can't really explain what is it, why it made me feel good, but yet I go to it. How did you come to terms with it?
Again, everything you're saying is my experience. That was my experience. I fought going to Reiki. This is not going to work. This isn't going to do anything. Yet I just reached a point with talk therapy that I had to try something new. And again, not that it wasn't working, just something different on a different level. So I tried the Reiki. I was resistant, but yet the peace and the calm and the relax that I felt after a session, I could not deny. I couldn't explain it with words in my head. I couldn't articulate it. But it was like you said, I just felt different. I just felt balanced. I felt relaxed. My body felt calm. My sleep was better. So it was profound healing.
Yes. Can you explain it now?
No, I
No.
can't. I wish I could. The only way I can explain it is just my body received it. My body received the energy, and I could feel it within my body, just relaxing and calming down. So the benefits were incredibly powerful.
What is your number one advice for people who are sitting on a fence to receive healing, still feeling pain and bitterness in their life? What would that advice that you give them to help them just so to breathe better today?
Number one, it's okay that you're sitting on the fence. That's not a weakness. That's not a mark against you. That's not shame. Just be willing to trust the process and learn from each of our experiences. We resisted the help, right? Like that's what we
Yes.
started this conversation. Just to know the discomfort is real and to validate you're in the pain you're in and to love yourself enough to do that one step towards healing and trust that that one step is enough.
Yes. And sometimes, even when you are not sitting on a fence and receiving healing, you can go back to sitting on a fence too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Every day, 100%. That is the process. Absolutely. Very well said.
I think a lot of healers on the internet, they have like a routine that they will share with people. Write down your 5 gratitude piece in your journal, do this, do that. But I want to say that no, because you do that as it feels good to you. But
Right.
sometimes it lost its effect and you need to do something else. You can come back to it, but you don't need to
Right.
force yourself to keep doing that.
Right. 100%. 100%. It's not that easy, right?
No, it's not that easy.
Not at all.
I want to thank you so much for coming on today to our Courage to Heal podcast channel because I started off feeling denial that I'm having this interview. I actually waited to the last minute to get my show notes ready. And then once I'm seated there, I contemplated not showing up, hiding because as I said, there was something that was triggering me. But I
Yes.
came on clenching onto my fur coat and putting my hand on my stomach most of the session, trembling
Yeah.
as we touch on different topics because they are very triggering and very raw to me. But
Yes.
I am very grateful because you held the space for me to share my questions, and then your words were very comforting, soothing, and healing to allow me to feel calm again. And that power of breathe deeper
Yes.
let me give out my first smile in the
Yeah.
interview.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And that's the gift of holding the space for each other,
Yes,
right? It's about us being in this life experience together and supporting each other because we're all going through so much and all processing so much. It's the gift of trusting each other with that and offering and extending that compassion both to ourselves and to others. So thank you for the gift of trusting me and showing up because you did exactly what we talked about in this interview. You felt those feelings and yet you still showed up. You still moved forward, right? You didn't
I
let that
did.
grief be destructive. So thank you for holding the space for both of us.